Hare Krishna. So I feel both honored and humbled to be here amidst this wonderful community of devotees. It's inspiring to see so many of you so sweetly in a devotional mood trying to serve Krishna. And I hope over the next few days I'll be able to assist you in some small way. And I'm grateful especially to the devotees who invited me and organized the trip, Muralidhar Prabhu and his whole team. And I'm also grateful to all of you that you come here today. And I will give a brief talk and then we can have a long question-answer session. I was asked to speak on the topic of overcoming obstacles on the spiritual path, specifically at the levels of the mind, the intelligence, and faith. So this topic is based on Bhagavad Gita 5.17. This verse marks a significant transition in the flow of the Gita. Tad buddhayas tad atmanas tan nisthas tat parayanaha gacchantya punaravrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. So Krishna is speaking here, tad buddhayas. By investing your knowledge in that. Krishna uses tad. He's not specific, but he's describing the absolute truth over there. So invest your intelligence in the absolute truth. Tad atmanas. The word atma has many different meanings in different contexts. Here it refers to the mind. So invest your mind in the absolute truth. Tan nishthas. Invest your faith in the absolute truth. And in this way, tat parayanaha. Become devoted to the absolute truth. By this what will happen? Gachanti. You will go. Where? Apunaravrittim. To that destination from which one does not return. Apunar, not again. Avrittim. And how will this happen? Jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. By acquiring of knowledge, not just theoretical knowledge, this is transformational knowledge. What is the transformation that knowledge will bring about? Nirdhuta kalmashaha. It will cleanse us of all impurities. So essentially the verse says, by investing your intelligence, your mind, and your faith in the absolute truth, and thus making the absolute truth your goal, you will attain an eternal destination because you will become cleansed by knowledge. So the 5th chapter is called as Karma Sannyasa Yoga, or as Prabhupada translates it as Karma Yoga, Action, Krishna Consciousness. And this verse, as I said, is very significant in the transition in the Gita, because prior to this, Krishna has focused on the soul. The Bhagavad Gita, as we know, starts with Arjuna grieving about killing his relatives, and Krishna tells that the soul is eternal, and therefore you should not grieve. And then Krishna talks about how to act in knowledge of the soul. And in the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the references to Krishna are sparse, are few. The only reference, for example, where Krishna talks about himself as the object of yoga, as the object of the control senses. In the initial chapters of the Gita, Krishna is primarily the teacher of sense control, the teacher of mind control. But only in 2.61, in one fragment, in just 1/4 of one verse, Yukta Asita Matparaha, he reveals that he is not just a teacher of sense control, he is also the object of the control senses. We control our senses, and after that we fix the mind on Krishna. And then again, the next reference to Krishna comes only in 3.30. So the first chapter is among the longest chapters, the second longest chapter in the Bhagavad Gita. The last 18th chapter is Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, that is 78 verses. The second chapter is Sankhya Yoga, or as Prabhupada translates based on Bhaktivedanta Thakur's commentary, contents of the Gita summarized, that is 72 verses. So in the whole chapter, Krishna does not talk about himself at all. The third chapter, there's only one verse where Krishna refers to himself, that is 3.30, where he says, you offer the fruits of your work to me. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigata jvara. In the 4th chapter, there are several verses which refer to Krishna, that is from directly where Krishna talks about himself as God, primarily from 4.5 to 4.14. But that is not directly in the subject of the Gita. In 4.4, Arjuna asks a question. And in response to that, Krishna talks about his own position. So essentially, Krishna is talking about knowledge of the soul, and based on knowledge of the soul, how one can stay detached. Because I understand I am not matter, so matter cannot make me happy. Therefore, I should not get entangled with matter. And that's the theme which goes on into the 5th chapter also. So it is here from 5.17 the transition begins, and this will be developed fully from 7.1 to the end of the 12th chapter, 12.20, where the focus of the Gita shifts from the soul to the supreme soul, from the Atma to the Paramatma. And in this verse, Krishna is talking about that shift primarily. So if you see the prior verses, Krishna talked about how you understand that you are different from the body and stay detached. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. So 5.13 he says, just as in this room so many people will come in from the door, somebody might go out from some door. That doesn't directly affect us. Similarly, the senses are like doors to the body. What comes inside the senses, what goes out of the senses, that doesn't matter to you. Krishna says, say detached like that. But the Acharyas explain, especially Vishwanath Chakra Thakur in his commentary explains, that just contemplating that I am not the body and the soul does not make spiritual advancement very easy. Because we just have an intellectualized conception of the soul, and it's very difficult to meditate on that. So if we have an alternative higher object of meditation, then spiritual progress becomes much easier. And this verse talks about that absolute truth, Tad. Now Krishna refers to himself here in the third person, that absolute truth. Why is that? There are places in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna refers to himself as Mam, and then there are places in the Bhagavad Gita where he refers to the absolute truth in third person. For example, 18.66, the famous verse where Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. Just give up all varieties of religion, surrender to me. But just 4 verses earlier, in 18.62, Krishna talks about the same point, but he says, Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsisi shashvatam. So tameva sharanam gaccha, surrender to that absolute truth. So here Krishna refers to himself in the third person. Why is this? Sometimes in the first person Krishna refers to himself, sometimes in the third person. The primary reason is Krishna is speaking the Gita not just from the seer's perspective. He is speaking from the seeker's perspective. So the seeker, say who is a karma yogi or a jnana yogi, that karma yogi or a jnana yogi does not know that the ultimate absolute truth is Krishna. No. So, from the seeker's point of view, there is some absolute truth whom I should meditate on. So, when the seeker is a bhakti yogi, Krishna says, meditate on me. But when Krishna is talking about a seeker who is a karma yogi, who is a jnana yogi, who is a dhyana yogi, who does not know the absolute truth, then Krishna uses a third person reference. Meditate on that absolute truth. So here, Krishna is using that third person reference because this section is talking about karma yoga. And he's saying, meditate on that absolute truth. And by this, what will happen? Krishna says, you will get the knowledge that will purify you, jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha, and by that, will attain the supreme destination. Gacchante apunaravrittim. So normally, knowledge is thought of as a intellectual product. I apply my intelligence and then I get knowledge. But interestingly, Krishna says that here the knowledge that will purify us, jnana nirdhuta kalmasha, that is not just an intellectual product. Krishna says that we have to offer our whole being. And there he says, you invest your intelligence, tad buddhayas, tad atmanas, invest your mind, and then tannishtas, invest your faith. And in this way, you will devote yourselves to me, tat parayana, and then you will come to me. So our topic today is based on these 3 first elements, tad buddhayas, tad atmanas, tannishtas. So what are the reasons why we should invest our intelligence, our mind, and our faith in Krishna? And what are the obstacles in trying to invest ourselves thus? in the world, there are many different scarcities. I'm coming from India. In Nepal, in the vicinity of India, there was a devastating earthquake. And there's great shortage of food and other resources. Apart from that, there may be some areas where there is shortage of water. There is shortage of medicine. There are various kinds of shortages in this world. However, the greatest shortage is the shortage of a satisfying object of thought. People don't have anything satisfying to think about. And because of not having a satisfying object of thought, people are in constant anxiety. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to give a talk. The talk is the anxiety epidemic. See, we have abundant material necessities. Yes, there are definitely people who don't have any of the material necessities. But even the people who have material necessities, quite often, they don't have a satisfying object of thought. And whatever we think about, often that ends up increasing our anxiety, increasing our agitation. And that's why the fundamental need for getting satisfaction in life is to have a satisfying object of thought. Just as when we want to build a family, one of the first things that we require is a home. So whenever we go out, we may have to go for a job or some work or school or whatever, shopping, we come back home. And we feel comfortable, we feel secure, we feel safe when we return home. In fact, that's why there's a phrase in English, it says feel at home. Feel at home means feel comfortable. So we create a home for our body. But what about a home for our consciousness? A home for our thoughts? An object of thought where when we think about it, we feel at home. We feel peaceful, we feel secure, we feel satisfied. So the Bhagavatam states, Dhautatma Purushah Krishna Padamulam na munchati Mukta Sarva Parikleshah Pantha Swasharanam Yatha. The same example it gives, Pantha. Pantha is path. Pantha is one who travels on a path. So it's a traveler, a weary traveler after a long journey. Swasharanam Yatha. When such a traveler comes back home, that traveler feels so peaceful, so joyful, so comfortable, so safe. So it is said that a purified soul, dhautatma. Here also the same root word is used in this 5.17. Jnana nirdhuta kalmasha. So nirdhuta dhautatma. Same thing. So one who has been purified, dhautatma purusha Krishna. Such a person, Krishna padamulam namunchati. Such a person never gives up the lotus feet of Krishna. Why? Mukta sarva pariklesha. Because by meditating on Krishna, one becomes free from all anxiety. Not just anxiety, any kind of distress. Mukta sarva pariklesha. That is the speciality of Krishna, of making Krishna as the home of our heart, as the home of our inner world. I write articles, sometimes I write poems also. So one of the poems I wrote is from an article, Smiling Faces, Crying Hearts. So, in materialistic society, people celebrate by cheers. They have drinks and they say cheers. So quite often, this is just a facade. Their hearts are filled with fears. Their hearts are filled with fears. Their minds are pierced by desires. Their minds are pierced by desires. They are on the verge of tears. And they say cheers. So from the external point of view, it may all seem very comfortable and cozy. But internally, there are these two forces. There are anxieties and there are desires, which rip us apart. And they don't allow us to be peaceful. So we meditate on Krishna not just as a provider of things. That is one level of meditating on God. That we go to God and God, as Prabhupada would say that, the Christians pray, that Prabhupada was respectful to Christians. At the same time, he would point out that the mainstream version of Christianity doesn't focus much on God. It focuses on man. So, Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, give us our daily bread. Now, there are some Christian theologians who explain that bread has a very sophisticated meaning. But for the common people, it is just that, oh, Father, give us our daily bread. So, Prabhupada would say, yes, it is good that people are going to God for bread, but then such a prayer shows not their love for God, but their love for bread. So, if I can get bread from some other source, then there's no need to go to God. So, of course, anyway we go to God, that is good. But we undersell ourselves when we go to God for anything material. Because that material thing cannot actually provide us shelter. Cannot provide us, as I said, a satisfying object of thought. And this is the commonplace mysticism of bhakti. Now, mysticism is generally thought of as something very extraordinary and special. But bhakti makes mysticism commonplace. How is that? That anybody who chants the name of Krishna, anybody who hears the pastimes of Krishna, anybody who meditates on Krishna can experience some kind of uplifting. Just thinking about Krishna, hearing about Krishna, one feels a sort of strength, a sort of solace, a sort of satisfaction. And that actually indicates to us that this is Krishna, this is God whose shelter I'm experiencing. It's like if there is a small baby, the baby is sleeping in her room and it's very cold at night. The baby may not, is half asleep, and if she's very newborn, she may not even understand the concept of my mother. She drinks milk from the mother, she feels very happy when her mother takes care of her. But she may not understand, she's sleeping and is trembling. And the mother comes along and the mother puts a blanket on the baby. Now, or maybe the mother turns on the heater. Now the baby doesn't understand at a conscious level, oh, this is my mother, she's put a blanket over me. But she feels comfort. So that comfort indicates at the subconscious level, yes, there's my mother and she loves me, and her love is manifested through this cool, this comforting, protective blanket that has been put around me. So when the baby is asleep, she cannot see or perceive the mother. Similarly, we as souls are spiritually asleep. And at our current level of consciousness, we can't perceive Krishna. But when we experience solace, strength, security, shelter in the remembrance of Krishna, we can understand that to be a representation at our level of Krishna's love for us. So just as for the mother, the blanket and the warmth of the blanket represents for the baby, the blanket and its warmth represent the mother's love. Similarly, at our level of awareness, the security, the satisfaction, the shelter that we experience in remembrance of Krishna, that is evidence, a preliminary evidence, no doubt, but still it's evidence of the love of Krishna which is manifested thus to us. So, Krishna is the supremely satisfying object of thought. And the Bhagavad Gita, while later on describing the qualities of a devotee in the 12th chapter, uses a beautiful antithesis. Aniketah sthiramater. Antithesis is the placing together of two opposite ideas. So aniketah means one who has no home. Niketan is home. Aniketa is one who has no home. And sthiramatir. Sthiramatir is the consciousness is fixed. So Krishna is saying over here, for my devotee may not have no home externally for the body, but my devotee has a home for his heart, for her heart. And that home is my lotus feet. Aniketah sthiramatir. So we practice bhakti if we understand, if we associate with devotees and understand the purpose of practicing bhakti, then that is primarily because we want Krishna to become the default object of our thought. Sometimes devotees ask, how can I think of Krishna always? It's not practical. Yes, initially it's not practical. But we have to begin somewhere. Just like when we have a home, now it's not that we are always going to be in the home. But no matter wherever we are, we know I can always come back home and I can experience shelter. So like that, devotees, there is some time, like when we are chanting, when we are hearing, when we are worshipping the deity, at that time, we fix our consciousness on Krishna. And other times, our consciousness goes to various places. We have a job, we have family, we have various concerns. So consciousness goes there. But just as soon as our work is there, we come back, work is done, we come back home. So like that, we bring our consciousness back to Krishna. So when I said we make Krishna the home for our heart, what does that mean? The heart is itself not gross. And making a home for the heart doesn't literally mean constructing anything physically. Rather, it means deconstructing our preconceptions of what is our greatest object of love. Now, home for the heart means essentially the object of love. Whatever we love the most, that is what we by default think about. Just a few months ago, the Cricket World Cup was going on. I believe the World Cup finals was here in Australia itself. So in India, when we go for programs, there are young people, they're walking on the street and they're imagining I am the next Sachin Tendulkar. Moving the bat around and swinging. So what is happening? Physically, they may be on a footpath in India, but mentally they are in some cricket stadium on the pitch hitting a match-winning sixer. So whatever we are attached to, whatever is our object of love, that becomes our default object of thought. So essentially making Krishna the home of our heart means that we make Krishna the object of our love, the foremost object of our love. And when that happens, then naturally we may think about other things, but our thoughts will come back to Krishna. So when will this happen? When, it is said over here, we invest our consciousness in Krishna. How do we invest our consciousness? Through our mind, through our intelligence, and through our faith. Now, Jnana Nirdhuta Kalmasha, it says, this knowledge will purify us of our contaminations. So the contaminations are what prevent us from fixing our consciousness on Krishna. Just as for a magnet or for iron filing, it's natural to be attracted to a magnet. Similarly, for the soul, it's natural to be attracted to Krishna. But just as a iron filing when rusted may not be attracted to the magnet, similarly, when our consciousness is covered by contaminations, it is not attracted to Krishna. So those contaminations have to be removed. And that removal happens by investing our consciousness in Krishna. So natad buddhayas. Spiritual life actually begins with the intelligence. Because it is only by intelligence that we can think that there is something more to life beyond what I am living right now. If we look at a typical materialistic person's life story, now it is www, not 3 W's, not the World Wide Web. This is www. What are the 4 W's? Want, I want this, I want that. Nothing comes free. So the next is work. Oh, I have to get that. Work. And then, even if we work, even if we earn, still we may not get what we want. Or even if we get something, we may lose it. So there is worry. And then, no matter how much we worry, sooner or later things are taken away from us. People in their youth lose their health to gain wealth. And then the middle age or old age, they lose their wealth to regain their health. And at the end, they lose both their health and their wealth. So the last W is weep. We lose everything. So want, work, worry, weep. So this is the unfortunate life story of a materialistic person. But, so it requires a certain amount of intelligence to ask the question, is there something beyond this? Now, if we look at even the world and the universe and think how it came about. If we don't have a spiritual paradigm, then what is the story? Like I talked about the story of a life, of a human being. What is the story of the universe? The story is 3 sentences. Nothing existed because of nothing. Nothing erupted because of nothing. And from that nothing, because of something, everything came. No, it just doesn't make any sense. So, whether we talk about our own life or whether we talk about the universe, it requires a certain level of intelligence to think beyond. What more is there to life? Tad buddhayas. And once we start inquiring what is there beyond, then there is spiritual wisdom literature which guide us. So, this which guide us to make our start. And not just a start, even continuing on the journey requires intelligence. So, Jiva Goswami explains in the Sandarbhas that for the Siddha, for the pure devotee, it is Preeti that keeps the devotee fixed in Krishna. Because the devotee naturally loves Krishna, so always the devotee lives in Krishna. But for the sadhaka, it is the buddhi that keeps the sadhaka fixed in Krishna. It is our intelligence which helps us understand, yes, I'm attracted to this thing, I'm attracted to that thing, I'm attracted to that thing, but all these things, they will only give some temporary pleasure. So I want something eternal. So tad buddhayas. We use our intelligence to understand Krishna's message, understand Krishna's glory, and to make him our foremost object of thought. Then tad atmanas. So now in the case of intelligence, there are doubts that come. I'll talk about doubts when I come back, but I'll just analyze this. So there are two kinds of doubts. There are intellectual doubts and there are hard doubts. I'll come to both of them. But the obstacle at the level of intelligence is intellectual doubts. Then there is tad atmanas. Then we fix the mind on Krishna. Now, many times in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Man mana bhav mad bhakto, fix the mind on me. Here, interestingly, Krishna is saying, first invest the intelligence, then invest the mind. Why is that? Because the mind is restless. And the mind will not itself very easily get fixed. But before we can fix the mind, we can fix the intelligence. So again, going back to the mother-child metaphor in a different context here. If a child is sick, at that time, if the mother will take the child to a doctor, and then when the doctor gives the medicine, the medicine is meant for the child, while the doctor will give the medicine to the mother. And it's the mother's responsibility to make sure that the child takes the medicine. So like that, the mind is like a child. Krishna uses many times the word chanchala. Chanchala is the adjective often used in Sanskrit for children, and it is also used for the mind. So our mind is going to be like a child. But our intelligence has to become like a parent. And with the intelligence, so when we go to a doctor, the doctor is the spiritual master, the doctor is ultimately Krishna, Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. And he gives us the medicine of the holy name, the medicine of his remembrance. So now, when the spiritual master instructs, guides, just like the doctor guides the mother, similarly the spiritual master instructs our intelligence. And then it is our responsibility to make sure that we take the medicine of the remembrance of Krishna. Just like it's the mother's responsibility to give the medicine to the child. So, we have to become like the parent of our mind. Just like a mother is there. Now if the mother leaves a child on a bed, the child just comes to the edge of the bed and falls down. Now, that's to be expected. It's to be expected because children are by nature restless. So the mothers are prepared. Maybe you have beds with high side raises, or mothers keep an eye on the child. So rather than getting discouraged if the mind goes here and there, we expect that. And we prepare for it. So the obstacle at the level of the mind is desire. The mind is filled with desires. I want to eat this, I want to enjoy this, I want to watch that, I want to do this. And these desires keep the mind going here and there. So with our intelligence, we can evaluate whether a desire is worth investing our time or energy or not. And accordingly, we can control the mind. So tad atmanas, that is, fix the mind on me. Krishna says second stage. And third stage is tanishthas. and have faith in me. And what is that faith? Tatparayana. The faith is that you make me your goal. There are various levels of faith. There can be the faith that, yes, I believe that God will be my provider. But that is not the kind of faith Krishna is talking about, that God is my goal. Tatparayana. Now this, as I talked about, is the faith of the heart. There is faith of the head and there is faith of the heart. Tatparayana. Then we make Krishna the goal. So these are the three faculties which we can invest: our mind, our intelligence, our mind, and our heart or our faith. So now coming to the obstacles, as I said, there are head doubts or there are brain doubts. That means there are questions which are, scripture itself has a wide variety of knowledge. And there are different aspects in scripture about which one may get questions. So for example, sometimes there are astronomical figures talked about in the scripture. So it is said that the residents of Dwarka, they numbered in millions and billions in huge number. So now we may our skeptical, logical mind may get a question. How is it possible that there can be so many people there? So now once Srila Prabhupada was asked this question, when devotee, a disciple asked Srila Prabhupada, he said that, Prabhupada, when we tell the scholars that the Bhagavatam says that there were so many people in Dwarka, and they laugh at us. He says, where were their houses? Where were their washrooms? How were they living? So, now, Prabhupada could have said, Krishna can do anything. Krishna is inconceivable. That's true at one level. But Prabhupada was expert at answering according to the level. So Prabhupada said, among all the thousands of the verses in the Bhagavatam, was it the only thing that you found to speak to scholars? So, the point is that actually there are important things and there are subordinate things. A simple example to illustrate this, what is important and what is not important. If I am a patient and if I go to a doctor for treatment, at that time, before I decide to take a treatment, I cannot expect to get a degree in medicine. If I start asking questions about everything in the treatment, probably before I get the treatment, I will die because of the sickness. So certainly we have to have some amount of discretion and some amount of discrimination when we go to a doctor. But the primary discrimination that we have, the word discrimination nowadays have a negative connotation, but we could use discernment. The primary discernment we have is, does the doctor's medicine make sense? Doctor's analysis, doctor's diagnosis make sense? And more importantly, does the medicine work? So head doubts are like if a patient goes to a doctor and starts asking about every single device in the hospital. What is it meant for? Now, okay, it's good to be curious, but when you are sick, it's more important to take the medicine. So like that, when we have doubts, certainly the Krishna conscious philosophy answers questions more than any other philosophy. One of my friends is one devotee in West Indies. He publishes my articles in a West Indies newspaper. So he told me that he has become quite a prominent figure. So there was a Christian preacher over there. He was giving a talk. And he was telling how everyone except Jesus is from the devil. So he was naming various organizations, various religions of saying. So one of the things he said is, even if there are the Hare Krishnas who can answer every question that you have, still those answers are coming from the devil. So now, of course, within Christians also there are narrow-minded and broad-minded Christians. The point is that even those who criticize the Hare Krishnas, they also know that we have a lot of answers. So yes, the Krishna conscious philosophy does answer a lot of questions. At the same time, there is, as we say, when you go to a doctor, the primary purpose is to take the treatment. So like that, if we have many questions about many things which are not directly relevant to our practice, then we can keep them in a bracket and wait for a right time when we can ask those questions. There are certain important questions about the process of Krishna consciousness, about the core principles of Krishna consciousness. If I have a doubt whether I am not the body, I am the soul, that is something which I have to seriously address. But if somebody goes into 5th canto cosmology and starts asking questions, now 5th canto cosmology is actually from a celestial level. It's a divine cosmology that is being described. So the purpose of the Bhagavatam is not to give us cosmological knowledge. It's to give us spiritual knowledge. But while giving spiritual knowledge, the Bhagavatam also refers to the cosmos and describes how in the universe, everywhere, dharma is being practiced. Everywhere, people are devoted to God. So the purpose of the Bhagavatam is to show how dharma pervades the universe. It is not to give a description of the universe. So if we have some questions about, say, the Bhagavatam's cosmology, put it in the mental bracket. Put it in the bracket, and later on, when there are some devotees who are expert in those fields, we can ask those questions. So when we get doubts, about head doubts as I said, at that time, we have to ourselves evaluate what is the level of these doubts. What does the level means? How important are they for me right now? So if I am in a particular field, and I want to make that field my specialization, then we can go deep into those doubts. But otherwise, it's not very important to try to get an answer to every question. Important questions about the core principles of bhakti, we get answers for. So often, just put the doubts aside, wait for a right person, right forum, where we ask the questions, get the answers. But don't let those doubts nag us constantly. Because sometimes we may say, how can I put my doubts aside like this? The simple fact is that, when we are not putting our doubts aside, somebody may say, how can you have belief like this? People, nowadays in today's world, the word belief is often criticized by atheists. How do you believe something like this? No. So even if you say that I'm not going to believe this, still I'm believing. When I'm not believing Shastra, I'm still believing. All that I'm believing is my doubt in Shastra. Isn't it? So disbelief is not an option at all. Disbelief is also a belief. It's also a belief, and what we are doing is we are believing our doubts. So we can't avoid believing. All that we can do is choose what to believe and what to doubt. So just put aside certain doubts, and there are specialist devotees who can answer specialist questions in specific fields. That's with respect to the obstacle with respect to the intelligence. Now the obstacle with respect to the mind, as I said, it is primarily desire. Now the fundamental problem that comes with respect to desires is that we often have two approaches. One is that if I want to be pure, there should not be any desires only in my heart. And the other is, if there are desires in my heart, then let me indulge in them. Now both are extremes. Why? Because the nature of the mind is that it changes slowly. It's like a mother can understand the value of education. For the child to understand the value of education is going to take time. So like that, the mind, it has experienced various pleasurable objects of this world, and although they have given little pleasure, not much pleasure, but still the mind keeps wanting to experience them again and again and again. And the mind experiences Krishna and has great satisfaction in Krishna. But still, the mind by its habit goes back to the worldly objects. So at that time, what do? Rather than expecting that the temptation, the desires will go away, we need to understand that the mind can only propose. It cannot impose. The mind can only propose. The mind can say, do this, do this, do this, do this. But we have the option to say no. How do we have the option to say no? Imagine the car is being driven. Now, if say I am the driver of a car, and next to me there is a child, or say the mother is driving the car and there's a child. And the child is very restless. And the child says, Mama, see that advertisement, Mama, see this, Mama, see this stall, Mama, see this. And if the mother starts looking at all that the child is pointing, the vehicle will meet with an accident. So what does the mother do? The mother neglects the child. And the child makes a little noise and afterwards it will become silent. So like that, we are like the driver in the car. And the mind is like the child next to us. Hey, come on, see this, eat this, go there, go there. So the mind is going to propose. But just as a child cannot push the mother off and take the steering wheel in those hands. So the mind cannot impose. The mind can only propose. It is only when we accept the propositions of the mind, then we indulge in those things. So by recognizing this, that the mind is not in control, we are in control, then we can learn to say no to the mind. Temptations will come, we don't have to welcome. Temptations are going to come anyway, but we don't have to say yes to the temptations. So one of the fundamental ways of dealing with desire is not indulgence, nor is it abstinence. We cannot indulgence in the sense that it's not that every desire that we come we indulge in it, nor is it that we expect that the desire should completely disappear. It should get eradicated. Krishna says, tolerate. Shaknoti haiva yasodhum praksharir vimokshanat kamakrodhodbhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha. So he says, tolerate desires. Tolerate. Now, the challenge that comes in tolerating is that often we focus on that which we are saying no to. So if we dwell on the object that we are not meant to enjoy, then what happens? See, whatever we dwell on, the mind fantasizes more and more and more about it. So what was just a casual attraction soon becomes a consuming obsession. And something that a person did not even know about. Maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a person did not even know about it. Or it was 5 years, even bad habits or addictions can be formed within months. Something which a person did not know about a few months ago, a few months later the person may feel, I can't live without it. All that has happened is that tolerance was not there. So we dwelled on it, and it became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So if we just don't dwell on it, then it will become smaller. But we can't not dwell on it. What we need again is a positive object of thought. So as I said, our goal is to make Krishna our home, our supremely satisfying object of thought. But as long as our mind is caught with other things, often when we fix the mind on Krishna also, Krishna doesn't feel very satisfying. So for that time, there is sadhana bhakti. Sadhana bhakti means we make Krishna as our object of thought by discipline. So even if I don't feel satisfaction thinking of Krishna, at the very least, in thinking of Krishna, there is safety. Now if you're just thinking, I should not do this, there's only dissatisfaction. Because we feel deprived. Oh, there is some pleasure and I'm not supposed to do it. But if we turn towards Krishna, gradually we start experiencing satisfaction. And Prahlad Maharaj says, Twadvirya gayan mahamrita magna chittaha. He says, my dear Lord, when I sing your glories, it is like I'm experiencing an ocean of happiness. And when the ocean of happiness is experienced, then I feel, generally speaking, as devotees, when we practice Krishna consciousness, we may always get that thought, oh, there are materialistic people who are enjoying so much, I am missing so much. But Prahlad Maharaj is an advanced devotee, and he is relishing Krishna Bhakti, and he is not feeling, oh, I am missing so much that they are enjoying. He is feeling, they are missing so much what I am enjoying. So therefore, I feel pity for them, and I want to share what I am enjoying with them. So actually, if we focus on Krishna, saying no to anything is never pleasurable. It is an austerity which we may have to do. But if our focus is on saying no, then that no, oh, maybe no, maybe yes, no! So gradually, the no will become not just a yes, but it will become now. Why? Because we are dwelling on that. The whole focus is that we dwell on Krishna. And when we dwell on Krishna, then gradually we'll find that there is satisfaction in meditating on Krishna. So that is, the way we deal with desires is not that we indulge in them or not that we expect that they will disappear, but we learn to tolerate. And tolerate by focusing on Krishna. And then last is tannishthas. Put faith in Krishna. Make Krishna, invest your faith in him, make him the goal. So now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his book Madhurya Kadambini analyzes elaborately what is the source of faith. And he gives various sources, but he says primarily bhakti comes from bhaktas. Bhakti sanjayate bhakti. The Bhagavatam also says in 11th canto. So, it is by the association of devotees that we get faith. And if somebody seems to have a lot of faith and doesn't seem to be depending much on association, all that it means is that person had a lot of association in the previous life. And that's why the person has faith now. But faith comes primarily by association. So, now, if we see, there are 9 stages of bhakti that are described by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Samad Sindhu. And I talked about the head doubt, and now I'm going to talk about the heart doubt. So head doubt is what he talks about when he talks about adau shraddha. Initially put a little faith and inquire, what is this bhakti stuff? What is this God? What is this soul? I want to know. And one begins with that, with a little faith. Prabhupada often translates this initial faith as favorable curiosity. Let me know about what it is. And then, adau shraddha, then there is sadhu sangha. We come in the association of devotees. We ask questions, we get answers. Then bhajana kriya. We start practicing bhakti yoga. And then anartha nivritti. Anartha nivritti is the purification in the heart happens. A purification in the heart means that the anger, the greed, the lust, all this starts going down. And this is something which anyone and everyone in any part of the world can experience. That by the chanting of the holy names, by the remembrance of Krishna, the lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, illusion, they do go down. And all of us in our own life, we can think, we may all have had some habits which we might have thought irresistible before. But now, we may feel not much attraction. For example, many devotees might have been used to eating meat earlier. Now, there are many temptations in this world, but very few devotees actually fall for the temptation of eating meat. Because literally, prasadam is the higher taste. So what happens is, that meat is just one example. There can be different examples. We can ourselves think of something which we found irresistible earlier, and then over a period of time it becomes tolerable, and then it is not even noticeable. It doesn't matter only. So this transformation has happened in our own lives. Or if we're very new to bhakti, if we just practice, it will happen in our own life. And this is the testimony in our own heart of the potency of bhakti. So by the association of devotees, I said, Shraddha, as anartha nivritti happens, anartha nivritti means the undesirable cravings from the heart go away, then it becomes nishtha. Nishtha is strong faith. Vishwanath Chakravarti used the example that at the stage of Shraddha, faith is like a banana tree. It can be easily shaken. But at the stage of Nishtha, it is like a banyan tree. Nothing can shake it. So this has happened because we have ourselves experienced purification. Just like when we go to a doctor, if we take the medicine and it cures us, then the faith in the doctor becomes very strong. So similarly, when we talk about faith, first we understand the philosophy, but then when we practice the process, we experience the transformation in the heart. And it's very important for us to meditate regularly on the benefits of Krishna consciousness that we have experienced in our own lives. The whole process of bhakti is to make our memory our treasury. It is to make our memory our treasury. As I said, we want a satisfying object of thought. So, if we have experienced some transformation because of Krishna consciousness, it's important that we consciously cultivate that remembrance, because that will reinforce our faith. If we have had some deep spiritual experiences, say we went on yatra to some holy place, we associate with some advanced devotees, we participate in some ecstatic kirtans, there's some very heart-rending darshans, we heard some very philosophical penetrating points, whatever it is that has inspired us, we treasure that. And then these are the testimony of our own heart. The nature, as I said, faith comes from the association of devotees. But ultimately, faith is stabilized by the transformation that we experience in our own heart. And because our heart is internal and the world is external and our consciousness is often externally directed, often we lay a lot of stock on externals. Now we say that yes, faith comes in the association of devotees. But sometimes it may well happen that some devotees may behave in an uninspiring way. Now, whatever may be the reason for that, I'll not go into that. They may be equals, they may be seniors, they may be juniors. Now, everybody is battling their own conditionings, and it may happen. So then, where do we get our faith from at that time? So we have to remember that association of devotees is not an end in itself. Association of devotees for the purpose of pursuing Krishna is real association. Now, Krishna in all his manifestations is like a kalpataru, is like a desire tree. So, if somebody comes in the association of devotees for, we come to Krishna's movement because we want honor. Yes, even if you become a CEO in a company, when you come in the company, now he's going to come and offer obeisances to you. Come in devotee, become a few years we are around, we become advanced and people start offering obeisances. So if we want gratification for the ego, we can get a lot of gratification for the ego in the association of devotees also, in Krishna's movement also. If we want wealth, we want power, we can get that. If we want controversies, we can get more controversies in the outside world also. And among the many things that we can get in the association of devotees, we can get Krishna also. So, if we forget why we are coming in the association of devotees, then even in that association, our faith can get damaged. Because not all devotees are at the same level. Vishwanath Thakur says that. Now, there may be many devotees who chant the holy names, but if they don't inspire us to become devoted to Krishna, then we don't have to necessarily associate intimately with them. It's not that we have to disrespect them, but we have a purpose why we are coming here. It's like if you go to a hospital, there are different patients who are at different levels of being cured. But they all have their different diseases. So, if we forget the purpose of going to the hospital, which is taking treatment, and we just mix with all the other patients, we might get their infections. So, what we go to a hospital primarily to get cured. And then we associate with other patients, you face this treatment. When you were doing this treatment, you had this problem, and how did you deal with the side effect? Or how did you do this? How did you do that? We learn from them. But the purpose has to be kept in mind. So, as I said, the doubts of the heart, if we experience the potency of Krishna Bhakti in our life, and all of us do experience it at some time or the other. So, once we experience it, those experiences, we have to make them the fuel for our onward progress in Bhakti. Remembering those experiences, we move onwards. And when we come in the association, we keep that focus in mind. Then we'll keep moving onwards towards Krishna. So, the faith can be stabilized, as I said, by two things. Association that inspires and strengthens our faith. And recollection of the transformation that we have ourselves experienced. And by this, in this way, we invest our intelligence by getting important doubts answered and other doubts relegated to a background for an appropriate forum where they can be answered, by learning to tolerate desires, by focusing on Krishna, and by strengthening our faith, by associating with those who enhance our faith, and by remembering those things which are testimony to the validity of our faith. By remembering our spiritual experiences, by remembering our transformation, we can move onwards in our bhakti. And we can also gachanti apunaravrittim. Now, one of the challenges for our faith is that on a daily basis, even if we become advanced, still the routine problems of life are going to be there. There's adhyatmik, adhibhautik, aidavik klesha there. There will be misunderstandings, the weather will be inconvenient, our body may itself fall sick. And periodically, lust, anger, greed might also make some appearance. So on a day-to-day basis, often we don't experience the transformation that we have got on a day-to-day basis. It's like if a mother is caring for a child. If every day the mother stands next to the child with a meter, how much the child has grown? The child growth is not like that. So similarly, it's not on a daily basis that we can experience our spiritual advancement. But just that every day the mother feeds the child, cares for the child is growing. So like that, every day we nourish our bhakti, we chant the holy names, we hear about Krishna, we serve Krishna, our bhakti is growing. But just as we cannot experience it tangibly on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, that transformation, so that may decrease our faith. So we should not focus so much on whether my desires are changing or not. We should focus on whether my values are changing or not. Values are changing means, now what do I consider important in my life? Sometimes devotees ask, I'm not able to chant attentively. What should I do? Maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the question would have been, why should I chant? So, the very fact that I am anxious, I am not able to chant attentively, that indicates my value has changed. So, one devotee shared an experience of how devotees' values change. So, he said once he said that twice in the temple hall, he forgot a very expensive camera. And afterwards he went back there was devotees doing kirtan and devotees, he said the camera was there as it is. And 3 times he forgot prasad in the temple hall. When he went back, the prasad was not there. So, the values have changed for devotees. So like that, if we just focus on our desires, every day same desire is coming, what is happening by my chanting Hare Krishna? Is anything happening? A lot is happening. So we focus on the change of values and thereby we bolster our faith. And when we move onward in this way, then Krishna says, Kachantya punaravrittim gyan nirdhuta kalmashaha. Often there is a possibility that we may get discouraged when we think that, there are so many impurities in my heart, there are so many problems which I am facing. So at such times, we should meditate not on how far we are from Krishna, but we should meditate on how far we have come close to Krishna. Now, what does it mean? Actually, if we consider among the millions of species, and there are millions of souls in those species, among them human beings are very few. Among those human beings, the number of human beings who inquire about spirituality are very few. Among those human beings, those who come to a right spiritual path are fewer still. And those who not just come on the path, but start walking in earnest on that path, they are even fewer. And to a large extent, we did not, most of us, at least I did not go out searching for Krishna. No, devotees came searching for me. So devotees came and gave some books, devotees came and told. So, without our doing much, Krishna has brought us so far on the spiritual path. Now, if we look at the general way materialistic people live today, the kind of goals that they have, the kind of, the utter state of godlessness in which they live. Now, one devotee was giving a class and he told, you are not your body. Then one person asked the question, if I am not my body, then whose body am I? So, the bodily conception is so entrenched, I am the body. So if I am not my body, then whose body am I? So, people have no spiritual knowledge at all. So in such a situation, and we may laugh at that, but we may well have been like that a few years ago. So, without doing much, Krishna has brought us so far on the spiritual path. So that Krishna who has guided us when we were not even trying to move towards him. Now we are trying to move towards him. So that Krishna who has got us so far will also take us the full distance. So if we start getting discouraged, we should remember this. Don't focus on how far we are from Krishna. You can think how far we have come already on the path to Krishna. And thus we can take heart and keep moving onwards towards Krishna. So I'll summarize. So I talked about how 5.17 marks a transition in shifting our focus from just detachment to a transcendental object of worship. The transcendental object of worship is Krishna. So we practice Krishna Bhakti not because we want God to provide for us. Yes, God will provide. But we want to make Krishna our object of thought. The greatest scarcity in this world is a lack of a satisfying object of thought. And to make Krishna the default object of thought means to make him the supreme object of our love and to cleanse the impurities that misdirect our love towards other things. And for that cleansing, we need to invest our mind, our intelligence, and our faith in Krishna. So invest our intelligence first. Investing our intelligence means that we inquire about the higher dimensions of life, higher aspects of life. And when we come to scripture, in scripture, the important issues we get answers. And other curiosities that are there, we put them on the back burner. Whenever there's appropriate for them, we can seek answers. So we can deal by doubts by either seeking answers or putting them on the back burner. We don't believe our doubts and let them sap our energy. We deal with the obstacle at the level of the mind, that is desire, by learning to tolerate desires. Not because temptation has come, we have to welcome. No. We learn to tolerate by focusing our mind on Krishna as a discipline. I discussed about how child may not want to take the medicine, but the mother makes sure the child takes the medicine. The mind may not want to fix on Krishna, but with our intelligence, we fix the mind on Krishna. And with respect to the obstacle at the level of faith is doubts of the heart. So those doubts that come, we can, in the association of devotees, and association of those devotees who inspire our faith, and in the testimony in our own heart of our transformation and of our spiritual experiences, of the times when we experience great ecstasy in Krishna Bhakti, and of the transformation means the change of our values. By that we can keep our faith strong and we can keep moving onwards towards Krishna. And if we feel discouraged, we focus not on how far we are, but on how far we have come by Krishna's mercy. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Any questions? Yes, Mataji.
You told about that we can focus our mind on Krishna. I want to know how you strengthen your faith on Krishna.
How we
strengthen our faith on Krishna. How we make our faith on Krishna strong.
Okay. So to fix our mind on Krishna, we need to have faith in Krishna. So how can we strengthen our faith in Him? Rupa Goswami gives the fundamental directive, yena kena prakarena manah Krishna niveshayet. Somehow or the other fix the mind on Krishna. Somehow or the other means that each of us is an individual. And based on our individual psychophysical nature, there are certain things in Krishna Bhakti that will attract us. And whatever it is about Krishna that attracts us, we dwell on that. And through that, we experience Krishna. And first of all, there is an intellectual faith. Means, we may have questions about why was Krishna unfair to Karna. That might be tomorrow I'm giving a class on Karna elaborately. I'll be talking about that. Or you have a question, why did Krishna dance in Ras Leela? So there are those sort of questions which we have to get philosophical answers by asking the right people. Once those are dealt with, then after that, so Rupa Goswami, in fact, in the Bhakti-Samavada Sindhu says that it is Shraddha itself that transforms into Nishtha, and Nishtha itself transforms into Prema. So faith is like a prelude to love. So we first have faith in Him. Yes, Krishna is God, and He is all attractive, and gradually we develop love for Him.
I'm asking in adverse circumstances.
Sorry?
In adverse circumstances.
Okay. Specific question, yeah. So if we are facing difficulties in our life, at that time, how do we maintain our faith in Krishna? There are three different aspects to this. First is, at a philosophical level, we need to know that the nature of this world is that it is a place of misery. So Krishna says this world is dukkhalem ashashvatam. So now, this might seem a very discouraging thing. I'm already facing problems and you're informing me this world is a place of problems. Where is the solace in that? But there is an important point here. Krishna says that, so scripture gives us one teaching that this world is a place of misery. But the same scripture also talks about great happiness. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, there's an ocean of happiness. And that also says it's expanding. Pratipadam Purna Amrita Swadanam. So every moment we can relish it. So that means that when we face troubles in life, at that time, rather than seeing that as a cause for doubting Krishna, we can take that same observation, same experience and turn it around. Scripture gives primarily two teachings. One is that this world is a place of misery. And the second is, in the shelter of Krishna, we can transcend misery by experiencing a higher happiness. So, in this, by experiencing the problems that I'm experiencing, I have experienced the truth of the first teaching of Krishna. Now, let me try to experience the truth of the second teaching. So, the first teaching is this world is a place of misery. I'm experiencing that to be true. So, second teaching of Krishna is by remembering me, by absorbing yourself in me, you can go beyond misery. So, Krishna is not saying the misery will go away. Krishna says we can go beyond misery. Mat chitta sarva durgani mat prasada tarishyasi. By becoming conscious of me, you will pass over all obstacles by my grace. Krishna is saying the obstacles will be there, but we will pass over them. So, first point is that the same fact that there is misery, it can damage our faith or it can deepen our faith also. Is it? By considering that the first half of scripture is true, first part of scripture is true, let me see if I can experience the second half of scripture also as true. Second part of scripture, that is, Krishna's shelter can help me to transcend misery. Now, second point is that when we face problems, it is often, life determines our problems, but we determine their size. We determine their size means that the more we dwell on a problem, the more it saps our energy, and the less is left our capacity to deal with the problem. So yes, the problem is there. Suppose I lose my job, I face a loss in a relationship, my health goes down, I am diagnosed with some terrible disease. All the various problems can come. That's a serious problem. It needs to be dealt with, definitely. But if we become problem conscious, then that problem starts dominating our consciousness. And then we lose whatever ability we have to even deal with that problem. So, at the very least, okay, the problem is there, I have to deal with it. But I don't have to think of the problem 24 hours a day. But the problem with the problem is that it glues to our mind. Now, if somebody has insulted me, okay, that person may have insulted me in 30 seconds. But that memory glues to my mind for 30 years. How dare that person speak like this about me? So, problems have a sort of inbuilt adhesive by which they stick to our mind. And that's why those problems, they become bigger than they need to be. So again, with respect to Krishna Bhakti, now if we have practiced Krishna consciousness regularly, then we can turn our mind towards Krishna. And yes, the problem doesn't go away, but the problem doesn't have to cast a bigger darkness in our consciousness than it needs to. If we turn towards Krishna and we force our mind to fix on Krishna, at least during that time, we experience solace from that problem. Yes, the problem is there, it's not gone away, but we can experience relief during that time. So yes, there are different levels of perceiving Krishna's mercy. The advanced devotees may see even the problem as Krishna's mercy. Now, we can't do that. Now, trying to see the problem as Krishna's mercy will be an exercise in futility. We'll start thinking, how is this impossible? But at the very least, we can see, yes, the problem is there, but Krishna's mercy can help me cope with the problem. Now, I write mostly English poems. Once I wrote a Hindi poem. So I wrote, Aaye sankat to hua sakshatkar, bina bhakti ke kaisa karta inhe par. So when dangers came, I got the realization, how could I have endured these problems without bhakti, without Krishna's shelter? So yes, the second level is, the problem is there and we have to do the needful to deal with the problem. But rather than letting the problem dominate our consciousness, we still try to take shelter of Krishna to ensure that the problem doesn't sap our mental energy. And even in the midst of problems, if we think about Krishna, we will get strength, we'll get clarity, we'll get a certain level of calmness. And then we will become more empowered to deal with the problem. So, no matter what problem comes in this world, no, Krishna is still ready to give us shelter. No matter what problem comes, everybody in life may desert us. But the super soul will never desert us and go away from our heart. Krishna will always be there for us. And if we seek his shelter, we can still experience the shelter. So that is also one level we can maintain our faith. So first is in the validity of scriptural teaching. Second is in the reality of the shelter of Krishna at all times, even amidst problems. The third level is that Krishna is an expert in transforming adversities into opportunities. We may not be expert, but Krishna is an expert. So much so that, even if a devotee commits a mistake, Krishna can transform that mistake also into a positive thing. How is that? There are many stories. Many of us know the story of the Pandavas when they were in the forest. Durvasa Muni came and Duryodhana had arranged that Durvasa come after the Pandavas' magic plate, the Akshay Patra, had already become exhausted. So then the Pandavas had no way they could feed Durvasa and his many multitudes of disciples. So they were in great anxiety. And at that time, they didn't know what to do. So Draupadi, a devotee, said, intelligence means to know what to do when you don't know what to do. I wonder what to do. How do I know that? So when we don't know what to do, remember Krishna. Pray to Krishna. So we may not have a solution to a problem, but at least the problem doesn't become a bigger problem because we know what to do at this time. So what did Draupadi do? By her devotional reflex action, she prayed to Krishna. Now interestingly, praying to Krishna made the problem worse. Why? Because when Krishna came, Krishna said, I am very hungry, give me food. And now we can just imagine Draupadi's agony. It is one thing to not be able to serve a venerable sage who has come to her house. It's quite another to not be able to serve her beloved Lord. And she said, Krishna, you didn't even know what to speak. Krishna, I asked you for relief because we don't have any food. We're not able to feed the sages. How can I feed you? So then Krishna said, just go and check the Akshay Patra. Now she went and she saw there's a morsel of food over there. Now often the thrust of the story is usually that Krishna just ate the morsel of food and not only was he satisfied, all the sages became satisfied. But there's an important point over here that how did that morsel of food come over there? Now normally any housewife will keep her utensils very clean. And if Akshay Patra is there, it's not an ordinary utensil. If somebody has a gold utensil, they use the gold plate for serving on special occasions. Nobody will leave food morsels on a gold plate remaining. So how did Draupadi, whether she cleaned it, the Mahabharata doesn't say, or her maid servants cleaned it, but she would have overseen it. How did that morsel remain over there? So whatever the cause, Krishna used that seeming mistake for his own good. So Krishna is an expert not only in transforming adversities that come of their own accord, but even adversities that come because of our own mistakes. Krishna can transform even those. So what we need to do is just persevere in the process of bhakti. Now when Abhimanyu is slaughtered on the 13th day of the war, Kurukshetra war, at that time Yudhishthira is devastated. Especially because Dronacharya had arranged a Chakravyuh whose primary object was to capture Yudhishthira. And because no one else knew how to penetrate the Yudhishthira sent Abhimanyu. And the Pandavas' plan was that they would follow Abhimanyu. But Jayadratha blocked them. And then Abhimanyu was trapped and he was killed. So Yudhishthira felt himself responsible. He felt himself to be blamed. Not only because he was a king, not only because Abhimanyu was just a teenage boy, but also because he had specifically sent Abhimanyu into the forest, into the Chakravyuh. So, Yudhishthira was such a virtuous person, and we can scarcely imagine the amount of guilt he must have felt at that time. No, I caused the death of my nephew. He was so distraught that he just charged into the Kaurava army. He said, I will take revenge against Abhimanyu's death or I will die myself. At that time, he was just charging like that. At that time, Vyasadeva came over there. And even at that time, Yudhishthira was cultured enough. He immediately got off his chariot and he offered his obeisances. And he was in tears and he told Vyasadeva what is happening. Abhimanyu has been killed. What should, how is this? So then Vyasadeva gave him philosophical instructions. Elaborate instructions. I won't go into all of it, but one important point he said, the inscrutable will of the Lord is surely for the good of all living beings. He's saying two things over here. First is, the will of the Lord is inscrutable. We cannot know why certain things happen in certain ways. But it is surely for the good of all living beings. Krishna is benevolent. He is always wanting the good of everyone. Now, one problem when we practice Krishna Bhakti is that we half-trust Krishna. What do we mean by half-trust Krishna? That means I have this problem and Krishna, you have the strength to solve this problem. I don't have the strength. Just like if some thief is attacking, then a person may go to a policeman, oh, protect me. Or we may have bodyguard, protect me. So, we don't consider the bodyguard to be very intelligent. But he's just strong. So like that, when we often go to Krishna, we think my intelligence and your strength. So, this is the problem, this is the solution. Krishna, you make sure that the solution happens. So, but having faith in Krishna means having faith not only in his strength, but also in his intelligence. That Krishna is wiser than us and he knows better than us how to solve our problems. So often when we expect or demand a solution in a particular way, then when that doesn't come, our faith weakens. But full faith in Krishna means not just that Krishna can solve the problem, but also the faith that Krishna knows how best to solve the problem. So that brings us to the next part. What Vyasadeva says to Yudhishthira is, first he says, the inscrutable will of the Lord is surely for the good of all living beings. The next thing he says is, if you do his will, then you will understand this in due course of time. That means if you do his will, then how everything was for the good, you will understand it in due course of time. So, we may not have a solution to our problem, and even Bhakti may not seem to be solving our problem. But no matter what the situation is, we can, at a very basic level, understand Krishna's will. What is that? Krishna's will. Now, we take shelter of him, we clear our intelligence, we clear our mind, and take one step ahead. So, faith does not necessarily have to mean that I will believe in Krishna throughout my life. It doesn't mean that because I have faith, my whole journey of life, it will be all well lighted and clear. Faith means just take one step ahead right now. Just take one step ahead, and then one step ahead, and then one step ahead. So, if you do his will, then you will understand it in due course of time. That means, for Yudhishthira it meant, okay, what is Krishna's will? Continue fighting for the cause of good. So for all of us, there can be huge problems, but we can just keep taking one step forward, one step forward, one step forward. And in due course of time, we will find out how things do work out for good. So in this way, by first understanding that problems can increase our faith in Krishna in scripture because they demonstrate the truth of one of the teachings of scripture, and we can push forward to verify the second teaching. Secondly, even amidst problems, we don't need to let them become bigger than what they have. We can take shelter of Krishna and get strength to face the problem. And thirdly, by knowing that Krishna always desires the good and Krishna knows best how to bring about the good, we can just keep taking one step forward, one step forward. And in that way, we'll be able to not only preserve, but strengthen our faith even amidst problems. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. How to deal with pride in your services to Krishna?
Okay. So how do we deal with pride in our services to Krishna? Answer is by dealing with Krishna, not with the pride. That means that we focus on Krishna. And it is not that because I do a service well, that's how I become proud. No. I already have pride, and because I have done the service well, I now have reason to express that pride. I hope you understand the difference. That it is not that because of the service I become proud. Just like if a man sees an attractive woman or a woman sees an attractive man, we may think that's the time when lust develops. No, it's not that, okay, that's the time when lust, but lust is already there. So, similarly, it is not that because of the service the pride develops. The pride is already there. The pride expresses itself because we have done some service which is praiseworthy. So, the first point is that not doing service is not the solution to pride. Because the pride is already there. And the same pride, the same anartha, which expresses itself as pride when we do a service well, will then express itself as envy when somebody else does the service well. So, we can't wish away the anartha, whichever is there. So, that anartha has to go away by purification. And purification happens by doing service only. So, first of all is that not doing service is not a solution at all. Now, secondly, when we do service, certainly we may become proud if we do the service well, and that's not necessarily bad. Why? Because we all need a certain level of sense of belonging, certain level of acceptability, certain level of respectability. It's a natural human need. I'll talk about this difference more later, but pride doesn't always, wanting recognition or appreciation for one's service doesn't necessarily have to be an expression of pride. It's just a basic human need. We are relational beings and we need relationships. And relationship means appreciation also. We appreciate each other. So, if we don't get acceptability and respectability in the circle of devotees, we will seek it in a non-devotee circle. And trying to become acceptable and respectable in the non-devotee circle will require us to do non-devotional activities. And that will actually degrade us. So, even if I sit erect and attentive during my chanting so that everybody thinks I am a serious chanter, well, at least because of that I am doing things seriously. Isn't it? That's the beginning. If I make that the end, then it's a big problem. But, we all need acceptability and respectability, and it's better to seek that in the devotee circle than in the non-devotee circle. That's the second point. Third point is that when we practice bhakti, we have a choice. That even while practicing bhakti, there are certain material pleasures that come. Somebody praises us. Now, is that pleasure material or is it spiritual? It depends on how we take it. If we think that, say, other devotees praise me when I'm doing a good service, if I think based on that, now they're all understanding how great I am, then that can well become expression of the ego. That can fuel my ego. But we can also take that appreciation as, this is Krishna encouraging me to do this service. Krishna wants me to do this service. Krishna has given me some abilities, and let me use them in his service. That means when we get appreciation, we have a choice. Whether we remember ourselves as independent centers of glory, or we remember ourselves as channels for Krishna's glory. So it is Krishna who is using me to spread his glories. And I'm grateful to Krishna that he's using me for that purpose. So when we focus on Krishna that way, then that praise, that appreciation that comes, that will not inflate our ego. So in the Gopi Gita, the gopis say that Nija jana smaya dhvamsana smita. It's a very enigmatic phrase. It says, your Nija jana, your own devotees, smaya is pride. Dhvamsana smita. Your smile destroys the pride of your devotees. Now what does it mean? Is it that when we become humiliated, Krishna becomes happy? No, not like that. That what it means is that when Krishna smiles at us, when we see Krishna's beauty, when we please Krishna, and we relish His beauty, that gives us such a higher happiness that we start feeling that, okay, the happiness that comes from pride, it's so trivial. I had this experience when I first started giving classes. The most eagerly awaited part of the class was after the class. Who will come and appreciate me? That was just the initial phase that I went through. But afterwards, one day I gave a class and I thought it was a very good class, and nobody appreciated me after the class. And then after that, just a thought came to me. When I was giving the class, I was speaking about Krishna and I was so happy. But after giving the class, when I'm expecting appreciation, I'm so miserable. So, remembrance of Krishna gives far greater satisfaction than somebody else's praise for having spoken about Krishna. So, it's not that by no means am I free from pride, but at least that experience gave me a jolting reminder that the happiness in remembering Krishna is, even if I am self-centered, even from a self-centered point of view, I just care for my own happiness, then even for my own happiness, seeking happiness in Krishna is a far stabler source of happiness than seeking happiness and being praised by others. So, like that, if we just analyze, if we practice bhakti with a little analytical frame of mind, we'll find that the happiness in doing service to Krishna is actually far deeper and far stabler than the happiness coming from the pride of having done the service well. That is always unreliable. And that way, we can shift our focus from the service that we are doing to the person for whom we are doing that service, for Krishna. And gradually, by that, we will start doing that service irrespective of whether we get appreciation or not, because we'll get connected with Krishna. So, to summarize, the cure for pride is not suppression of talent. It is not that I stop doing my service. It is purification of intent. Yes, I become proud by doing service, but I think, why am I doing this service? If I had to become a public speaker, I didn't have to become a devotee or a brahmachari for that. I could have spoken on any other topic. I have come to Krishna because I want to go to Krishna. So like that, when we think of the purpose of our service, and by repeatedly reminding ourselves, we purify our intent. Then, by that intent to focus on Krishna, we'll experience higher happiness, and the pride will itself go away. Just meditating, I should not be proud, I should not be proud. That is not a very positive way of getting rid of pride. Because sometimes some devotees say, I am very fallen, I am very fallen. It's good if that sentiment is authentic, but the ego is so sinister that I say I am very fallen, but my ego's focus shifts from fallen to I. So, rather than worrying too much about whether I am becoming proud of my service or not, proud because of my service or not, we focus on whether I am serving Krishna and whether I am remembering Krishna or not. And by that, the pride will come and it will go away. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions?
You spoke about that how the reason why we associate with Krishna is to increase our attraction for Him.
Associate with devotees.
Yeah, to increase our attraction for Krishna, and there is often in the beginning stage of Krishna consciousness, often we trust devotees more than Krishna or Shastras, and so because we associate so much with devotees, sometimes there is this frictions, and so and that means not trusting, at least for some time, the devotees, and obviously there is not so much trust on Krishna and Shastra. So how should one continue at that particular point of Krishna consciousness?
The question is that initially when we come in the association of devotees, we have a lot of faith in devotees. But as we keep practicing bhakti, then because of various interactions or whatever, that faith in the devotee starts decreasing. And then we don't have so much direct faith in Shastra and Krishna also. Then how can we continue our bhakti? Is that the question? Yeah. In our association with devotees, in our relationship with devotees, we will go through different phases. And like a small infant is there, For the baby, the mother is like God. The mother is the source of love, the source of life, the source of everything. And similarly, the father also comes into the picture. The mother and father are like God for a baby. But then, as the child grows up, then it's natural that the parents may love the child a lot, but still, the parents are also humans and they have their faults. So then, if the child focuses only on the faults of the parents, and then that can go into just a ultra rebellious mode, where the child forgets everything that the parents have done, and then just goes completely away from the parents. That is undesirable. Now, a more mature development chart is, yes, my parents also have faults. We are all struggling. Everyone is doing their best according to their capacity. And despite whatever limitations they may have, whatever faults they may have, they have done so much for me. And based on that, we have a stable relationship. So often when we come in the association of devotees initially, it's like, we know nothing and devotees knows everything practically. So it is like, we may not say directly, but devotees, we consider devotees perfect in everything. But as we keep practicing bhakti, we will find that everybody has anarthas. Yes, the serious devotees, they are seriously battling their anarthas, but it's not that the anarthas go away. So when sometimes we find that those devotees who inspired us a lot earlier, later on we find that they have some faults, and then the same inspiration doesn't come. Then a negative response to that is to just start condemning those devotees. You are a hypocrite. I thought you are a pure devotee. But now I know you have this anartha, you have this anartha, you have this anartha. Then that is undesirable. Because even if they are not pure devotees, even if they are from far away from pure devotees, still they have helped us in our journey towards Krishna. So it's not that we can expect faith to be like a frozen commodity. The faith that we had right in the beginning, we will have that throughout our spiritual life. So as we evolve as individuals, as we evolve as devotees, we'll find that we have our own natures. And Rupa Goswami in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu states, he says that we have to take satsanga, but then he also specifies something more. Sajatiya Asha Snigdha Sangha. Sajatiya Asha means those devotees who have the same category of desires that we have. Sajatiya Asha, same category of desires. Bhaktivinoda Thakur translated simply as like-minded devotees. So, we may be inspired initially in our spiritual life by one devotee or one set of devotees, but as our nature evolves, and as, say, we find out that we have particular talents, we have particular interests, we have particular kind of thinking, particular kind of questions. Now, it's not that that's wrong. If we find that we cannot accept everything that a particular devotee says, it's not that it's wrong. That devotee is one individual, I am a different individual. So, because I am not you, that does not mean I am crazy. And because you are not who I anticipated you to be, that doesn't mean you are crazy. So, it's just that we have to find out devotees who inspire us, who are like-minded, and develop relationship with that. We are always grateful to those devotees who helped us earlier, but we have to find out the association that inspires us and nourish that more and more. And by that we move onwards towards Krishna. So we cannot live in the association of devotees with closed eyes, not seeing any faults at all. If somebody has faults, we cannot blind ourselves to those faults. But it is not necessary that we reduce the devotees to their faults alone. Because they have faults, but they have a lot of good also. And if I find something else, this particular devotee association I don't find inspiring, it's not that we have to leave the devotee association, but we can find out some devotees whose association inspires us and get nourishment for bhakti in that. So Sajatiya Asha Snigdha Sangha is very important. To find out like-minded devotees and befriend them and move forward in our bhakti by that. And that way, we will not only feel ourselves understood and valued and loved, but we will grow in our bhakti. So, we don't have to have unrealistic expectations from devotees. One of the big, when I faced this problem that some devotees whom I valued a lot and somehow, in some way they disappointed me. It may well be that I had my problems. But one of the meditations that I make is, everyone is doing their best. Now that best may seem worse to me. Why is this person behaving like this? But I don't know what conditionings they have. I don't know what problems they are facing. So therefore, in their situation, they are doing their best. If somehow that doesn't inspire me, that discourages me, then I find out who inspires me. It's very important to not see devotees as disconnected from Krishna. What does that mean? To see devotees disconnected from Krishna means that if we see a devotee as an independent source of inspiration, then if that devotee stops inspiring us, then we'll have no source of inspiration. The more proper understanding is to see that it is Krishna who is inspiring us through that devotee. And if somehow that devotee has some problems or whatever, then I find out from whom is Krishna inspiring me now. So if we separate the devotee from Krishna, then our bhakti will run into a lot of problems. But if we know that keep the devotee connected with Krishna, that it is Krishna who is inspiring me through this devotee, and that same Krishna is now inspiring me through this devotee. So then we can keep moving forward in our bhakti, and we will be Krishna conscious in our association. Because it's just not possible for, as our movement grows, for senior devotees to, we have a spiritual master or other senior devotees. It's not possible for them to give the same kind of attention, same kind of time, same kind of affection, which we might have got in the initial days. It's just the way it is, that there are so many devotees and the community is so big. So we shouldn't take that as a personal rejection. Now, I don't know specifics, so I'm just envisioning different scenarios where this can happen. I'm just giving, so many devotees feel dissatisfied because I don't get the association of my spiritual master. That's true, but then the spiritual master, no matter how exalted a devotee a spiritual master is, still the spiritual master also has 24 hours in a day. And it's not possible to meet everyone, encourage everyone. So we have to see from where I can get inspiration and keep moving forward. And that as Krishna is inspiring us primarily through spiritual master, but Krishna can inspire us through many other devotees also. So by focusing on the Krishna connection, seeing that it is Krishna who inspires me through different devotees at different times, we can always make sure that we keep moving onwards towards Krishna. By finding out which devotees inspire us and cherishing that association. And not letting some frustration and some expectations with some other devotees choke our bhakti. That fragmented vision is very undesirable. Kunti Maharani says, Sneha pashamidam chinti drudham pandu shuvrishnishu. Says, Krishna, I want my consciousness to flow towards you. And if my attachment to Pandus, my own sons, if I become attached to them separate from you, then please cut off that attachment. Now, you see, the Pandavas are not just devotees, they are pure devotees. Now, how can a devotee say that cut off my attachment to devotees? No, he's not saying cut off my attachment to devotees. If somehow my attachment to a devotee, to someone is coming in the way of my progress towards Krishna, then cut that off. So this is a whole deep subject, but I just mentioned this, and that there can be material attachment to devotees and there can be spiritual attachment to devotees. Material attachment to devotees means it's not necessarily bad, because somehow we are attracted to Krishna through his devotees. But material attachment means we don't see the devotee connected with Krishna. And we see the devotee, this devotee sings so well, this devotee speaks so nicely, this devotee is so loving. Yes, all that is very good. But that is Krishna's ability, Krishna's love that is manifesting through that devotee. So material attachment means we see that devotee as an independent source of affection or source of qualities or source of abilities. And when that devotee is not able to provide that, then our bhakti collapses. So if some unfavorable interactions with some devotees starts affecting our bhakti, then we need to introspect. Maybe it was our attachment to them was material. And then we can focus on trying to spiritualizing that relationship or trying to find out some other relationship where the spiritual aspect can develop more easily. So to summarize, by not having unrealistic expectations and not becoming hypercritical of devotees if they don't live up to expectations, by finding out like-minded devotees where our talents, our nature, our inspiration grows, and by seeing devotees as not independent sources of mercy, of inspiration, but as channels of Krishna's inspiration, and knowing that Krishna can inspire me through other channels also. That way, we can keep moving forwards in our bhakti, no matter what ups and downs happen in devotee association. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So I think it's quite late now. Actually, I was planning to give a short class, but 3 obstacles in the devotional path was a topic. First of all, I had to explain Mana Buddhi and Shraddha, and then I had to explain the obstacles. So it was the longest topic. So I'm here for several days, and in future classes, I'll try to keep the classes short, and we can have more question answers. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki, Melbourne Bhaktivedanta ki. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.